So, you're under 2000 elo and you wish to improve your level. The best way to achieve that is to work on your calculation skill, because at this point of your chess journey determines the result of 99% of all of the games you play. What differentiates a professional chess player is that he is focused on the right stuff during his games. In this video I want to show you what exactly you should be focused on to find the best move in a respective chess position. If you are gonna think in a clear and structured way, the chances to play a high-quality chess game are much higher. So, let's get started! What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster of the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. And today we are gonna work on calculation. That's my favorite topic. Why? Because that allows you to improve your level so much, really substantially in a short period of time if you just refocus your mind. So first of all, I want you to focus on this position. Think about it yourself. I don't want you just to come and passively have fun. We already have Gotham Chess for that. I want you to really dive deeper into it and think what would be your variations, think about your opportunities, what your opponent can answer, invest your time so that when you are involved, and then I'm going to share with you my decision-making process, you can compare it, and of course with the right solution. I'm also not God, I make mistakes. And then you can use this entire thinking system into your games, and that will help you play so much stronger. So why to move? Pause the video please and try to find the best move, but not only that, also think about your opponent's opportunities. Alright, I hope you have done your job, now it's my turn. So whenever I get a position, first of all I have to evaluate it. Chess is a problem-solving game, so I need to understand where I'm standing now, whether I'm fighting to survive here or I just want to crush my opponent. Of course, I always want to win, I always want to destroy him, but I have to take into account the objective situation. Okay, so I have the queen here near the king, which is already pretty promising, and I have two minor pieces, whereas my opponent has a rook. Generally, two minor pieces, especially with the queen on the board, is beneficial because, well, you simply have more pieces and you can use it for your attack. But of course, it's a general principle. There are some occasions where it's the opposite way. So as for the pawns, I have one pawn less. So materially speaking, it's more or less around equal. In my personal preferences, I would still prefer the two minor pieces if everything else is equal. So the next step is to think about our opponent's opportunities, what kind of threats he has. It's so important, so essential. Also, when we are thinking about the queens on the board, we have to think about the kings on the board. How secure are the kings? We see that both kings are not especially secure here. Our king is like in the middle of the board without any defenders whatsoever. But thank God it's like at least the rook cannot come, but there are certain check opportunities for the opponent, like queen to g3 check or f2 check, and that is dangerous. We have to be aware of that. Those are the first threats we are thinking. So whenever we are thinking what our opponent can create, we have to think in terms of the most active opportunities. If you're gonna make a blunder and you lose most of your games because you blunder something. So like more than 90% for sure of all of the blunders you make, it's either a check or a capture or a threat. That is the reason why it's essential to start your thinking about the position in this exact order. And the same applies to your position, like when you're thinking about your moves. If you have a very good move and you miss it, we all don't want to do that, but if you miss it, then a huge chance is that it's either a check or a capture or a threat. For that specific reason, you always have to think about that first. You have to completely shift your mindset and always think in terms of checks, capture threats, checks, capture threats. I'm never too tired to repeat it. Like my students are trying to do that, but then they are forgetting it every second time, and that is the moment they make blunders. So we all need still to work on that. Even me, like I am of course doing what I'm preaching, but sometimes even I forget about that because I'm like deep into the game, some complicated lines and so on, that I completely miss some very simple basics like check on the first or the second move of the variation. So it's essential. Now, once we have talked about the threats of our opponent, Finally, it's the time to think about our opportunities, because even if he has some dangerous checks, even if our opponent is threatening checkmate in one, maybe we can attack first and create problems for him. So it doesn't matter how dangerous his threats are, we have to take it into account, absolutely, but still we start with the most active opportunities for ourselves. It's essential. Okay, so of course checks comes first. Queen to e6 is the only check I see here, but the problem is the queen is guarding that square. So we are just blinding the queen g7, queen h7, queen f7, the same stuff. So we don't really have any checks. That makes it even more complicated. So that means that our opponent has some checks here. Let's see whether it's dangerous. Just imagine that it's black to move here. So queen g3, that attacks both the king and the bishop. And if we want to win, then first of all, we cannot go away because that would blunder our bishop. But we also cannot go to f1 because queen comes to g2 check, and then we once again lose our bishop and with the check as well. So we have to play bishop f2. But I really like that move. Queen g3, bishop goes to f2. We are blocking the check, we are attacking the queen, and the most important thing is there are no following checks for our opponents. I really like that. So queen g3 is not threatening anything particular. f3, f2, check, we take it. That helps black in terms of opening up that rook. So that might be dangerous. You sacrifice a pawn so that your rook gets activated. So f2, bishop takes f2, queen to h1. King goes to e2, for example, and once again I don't see any checks because the queen has no. Wait, I'm stupid. Queen to f3 is a check, and then we are losing the bishop with the check as well. No, that's really bad news. So I think f2 is a real threat here. I think we seriously have to consider it. Now that was only the checks. Now we also need to consider the captures. For black, it's not really possible to capture anything, and the threats, because, well, for example, checkmate threat in one is a huge thing that we simply cannot ignore like that. So a threat is an idea to do something very dangerous with the very next move, or the intention to do that. For example, this move queen to g2 is a double threat here. It's threatening queen into checkmate in one move, as well as taking the bishop. But thank God, I think we have the same bishop f2 solution, and then everything is covered. So far, I think only f2 is really dangerous for us. We cannot, of course, ignore it and go away with the queen, because he's gonna take our bishop and promote the queen, and if we take it, then queen h1, and we are in trouble. How can we stop that? I like centralizing the queen. Like, if I still cannot give any checks, then what my queen is doing on g6 there. Like, yes, I can play knight e8 and create a checkmate threat, but I guess the opponent would be the first one to play f2, bishop takes, queen h1, king e2, queen f3, then he takes the bishop with a check, and then he can at least go back to f7 with... Actually, that wouldn't help. If he goes back with the queen to f7, I have knight f6 check, king h8, and queen h7 checkmate. I hope that wasn't too deep for you. In every case, I'm trying to create those variations afterwards so you can clearly see it. So knight e8 is quite an interesting opportunity because it's such an active move. It's checkmate threat in one. Also, it's a double checkmate threat. Yeah, okay, not in every variation, because if I play knight f6, he can take it with the rook. At least I win an exchange, and I take it back with the pawn, and I still threaten checkmate. So knight f6 is also a threat. Okay, let's then be more concrete about it. Knight a8. Now, as mentioned before, queen g3, just bishop f2. Because I have thought about my opponent's threats before, it helps me a lot now because I know it's not dangerous for me. Of course, when you're making a move, you need to be aware that something might have changed in the position. For example, this knight is no longer on d6. That is changing the position. It doesn't control some squares anymore. But in this case, it doesn't help the queen. After queen g3 and bishop f2, still no checks. Queen to g2 is, of course, in this case would be too slow, because queen g7 would be a checkmate. So f2 is a critical line. And we, considering the fact that we are threatening a checkmate, we don't care about anything, can we play something crazy like king to d2, now that I think about it? Because, yeah, feel free to take my bishop, promote the queen, I'm gonna give you a checkmate. And if you take on e8, then I'm gonna be taking it with a check. The next move, I still have time to pick up this f2 pawn. The problem might be a crazy move f1 knight promotion. That's the only check I see here. Maybe we can once again hide from the checks, like king to c1. And then queen e3 is not possible because bishop guards that square. Rook c8 is not a move because our knight is on e8. We can of course take it now because he already has a knight. And then the material is completely equal, but I guess then we are going to be the one creating those horrible threats, like playing g6, king is on h7, queen h5 check, in g8, g6, something like that. Yeah, not totally convinced about it, but it's an option. This video is brought to you by Chestnut. Chestnut is making amazing chessboards that allow you to play online from a real 3D board. They have high quality chessboards, nice looking chess pieces, so that you can enjoy and having fun playing it. Chestnut boards also have so many training functions that I absolutely love to use to my training, and it helps me to improve my chess every day. This is, for example, Chestnut Evo. I love to use it for my trainings, but they have so much to offer you depending on your preferences and your budget. And the best part is you can just use the promo code Journey to Grandmaster or click the link in the description to get a big discount on all of the Chestnut products. Okay, the second variation is knight e8 f2, just bishop takes f2. Now queen h1 is a critical line, the only check, reasonable, and then king goes to... Well, if king goes to d2, then just rook takes f2, and king c3, queen c1, he's always gonna get to us. And in the worst case scenario, he can, in the end of the day, protect the g7 pawn, but I guess we are never gonna escape checks on that variation. So knight e8, f2, bishop takes, queen h1 check, king e2, queen f2 check. Yeah, the same story, king d2, queen takes. Whenever we go, he always have some checks, and maybe he has a check along the e-file, and then he just attacks the knight on e8, takes it, and the game is over. So this knight e8 variation can work only if after f2 we play this crazy king to d2 line, which is not something you see every day, but it might actually work. So if our opponent makes something like a defensive move, something like queen to d7, knight e8, f2 check, king to d2, queen d7. Then we have this knight f6 idea. That is a forking also the queen, so he has to, well, he has to take because king h8, queen h7 is a checkmate. So he has to take with the rook, we take with the pawn, and now we, funny enough, protect this bishop on g1 with the queen, but it doesn't really help because g7 is covered and he just plays f1 queen, and that's an extra queen for black, so that's not an option. Knight e8, f2, king d2, queen d7. Do I have a follow-up here? No checks apart from knight f6. Taken on g7 doesn't help me. Taken on f2, well, he takes back with the check, and once again, I don't like it anymore. Yeah, for now it seems like it doesn't work for me. As I think that materially speaking, I'm better in this position, maybe I just need to stabilize everything, like play the move knight e4. The knight is, by the way, really great in the center because it controls so many squares on the board, in the central part of the board, so to say. So the point is, it covers the f2 square and the f6 square at the same time. Yes, it does not create that knight g7 checkmate threat, unfortunately, but the good thing is, if he plays f2, we can just pick it up with the bishop. And this time, the bishop is protected, queen h1 check, we can just play king d2. The knight on e4 is also protected. Everything is rock solid. I actually like knight e4 move a lot. If he plays the move queen g2 with the double threat checkmate and attacking the bishop, once again we can just play bishop f2. Everything is protected. Let's say queen h1 check, king d2, and he plays queen f1 with the idea to play queen e2 and continue disturbing our king. Do we have a follow-up? This time we do have queen e6 check. Whether it helps us a lot? King h8, not really sure. And if we play our knight f6 idea, he takes. And then if we take with the pawn, then he takes on f2 with the check. And then he's gonna, like, we threaten a checkmate, that's huge, but he's gonna have like 1000 checks. And yeah, I'm not sure I can get rid of checks. At least it doesn't feel that way. So knight e4, queen g2. Don't think I have anything better than bishop f2. Checkmate is coming. queen h1 check, king to d2, queen f1. This is the line, and queen e2 is coming. Like, queen e2 is not the end of the world, right? I can just step somewhere. I have to be careful, though, to stop rook c8 in this line, because that would be too much. Queen e6 deals with that. King h8. Maybe something simple like g6. And then I might be threatening some slow play like queen g4, queen h5 is a checkmate. But queen e2 check into, I don't know, c3, let's say. Doesn't have rook c8. Actually, he doesn't have any checks at all. I like it. I really like it, because then I can build my initiative. The most important thing is I have those two pieces for the rook, and as long as my king is not checkmated, I should be good to go. Of course, I should be active, I should create those checkmating ideas. Yeah, he might play something like b5, creating that queen c4 check, but I can still escape, like via c1, c2. Yeah, maybe I can't. Because he's gonna have, at the end of the day, some kind of perpetual queen c4 check when my king is on a2. I go to b1, queen f1 check, and whatever. Okay, do I have any alternatives to knight a4? So normally you find the best move in three-step method. First of all, you consider, you find all of the possible alternatives. The candidate moves, we call it in chess, basically promising opportunities for yourself that you consider to be reasonable. The second step, you analyze it and compare the resulting positions. And the third step, you choose the best move, which seems to be the most promising to you. Okay, knight f5 is not possible, he takes it. Knight f7 is not possible, he takes it. Bishop's moves don't make any sense because he can still play f2 check. Queen moves also doesn't help, like queen h5 with g6 idea, it's way too slow. He needs, yeah, just one move to create a dangerous threat, queen g2 or something, so he's always faster. Yeah, so I feel that must be the knight move. The question is, do I go to e8 or I go to e4? I really like e4 more because the knight is so helpful in the defense, mainly controlling this f2 square. This is a huge, huge improvement. And knight e8, the problem was this f2 variation. A bishop takes, queen h1, king to e2, queen f2. He takes the bishop with a check, and then probably the knight as well, and I'm completely lost. Right, so my move, I make a decision. I don't really see any alternatives to it. And maybe I'm missing something. Of course, as always, I am not perfect, I'm not God, but my variation, my calculation tells me that knight e4 is the best move. It controls the g3 square, it controls... Let's think about queen h1 for a second. Because that pins the bishop and that attacks the bishop. That's very good that I have noticed it, because it seems like a real problem. I cannot play king f2 or king f1 to protect it, because queen g2, check, and I have to go back, and then he takes the bishop with a check. And I cannot move the bishop, it's pinned. I cannot protect the bishop, I don't have any pieces for that. So queen h1 is a very serious move I have to consider. My attacking idea is knight f6 back, but just rook takes. Now pawn takes and I protect the bishop. Yes, that solves the problem. F2 check, I'm gonna just take it. I'm a bishop up, I'm attacking the g7. Yeah, thank God that works. So I think knight e4 is the best move. I hope your solution is the same. Let's compare it to the right one. So I have here the book Grandmaster Preparation Calculation from Jakob Agard. This is the position from this book, and I really recommend you use the high quality puzzles. Maybe not as tough as in this book, you can adjust it to your level, but don't use some garbage puzzles that are not actually helpful for you. And here I can show the solution. This was kindly provided by John Shaw, who assures me that he would have fallen for the trap had his opponent set it. Knowing him well, I believe this completely, especially as he had very little time to play the last two moves before the time control. The game ended. d5. Really, d5? d5 is a mistake, by the way. It's a wrong move. But what surprises me, I haven't even considered it as a move, because it feels to be just not active enough for me. So the problem is, by the way, it's great that I can just click the move here and see the side variation, making it easy. F2, yeah, exactly. F2, bishop takes and just queen to h1, and that is very, very annoying. White resigned, black has queen to f3 check. Oh, but I'm also wrong, because the right move is bishop f2. Now somehow I forgot about it. I said that moving the knight doesn't make sense because bishop e3 he still has f2 check, but I've completely forgot about bishop f2. Okay, I'm still curious to know what's wrong with knight e4. So bishop f2, that was the beautiful trap and the right move. Now queen d7 is calm, is winning, and winning. Ah, okay, so it's actually great for black. Then it's a little bit confusing for me with the puzzle at all, because I thought white should be winning. But instead, the author, the one who played this game, thinks that black would have played queen to h1, into g2, and now queen to f1. Seems like a very, very nice way to play. But the problem is there is queen to e6 check, king to h8, and g6 double exclamation point. And that is a fantastic conclusion. Black can now give a check on e2 and be entirely lost in the ending. Or play queen takes f2 into c3. By the way, that's a little bit something we have talked about, when bizarrely there is no way to avoid checkmate. So the checkmate is knight f7 check, and then, I don't know, let's say we play queen e2 or something. We play knight f7 check. If you take, then there is queen to c8, and that's just a back rank mate. And if you go here, then it's this very famous idea, double check, knight h6, king goes to h8, queen g8, rook has to take, and then knight f7 checkmate. It's called mother mate. No, that's too difficult for me to pronounce. Let me know in the comments what is the right way, but I'm pretty sure that's the name for it. Okay, but there is absolutely no comments for my move, knight to e4. What was wrong with it? And it seems like the position is not great for white objectively, because of that idea to play queen d7 in the bishop f2 variation. But what's wrong with my move? The great thing is I have here the engine, so I can check it. I'm very, very curious what's happening after knight e4. Yeah, it's even showing knight e4 like the main line, the best move for white, but unfortunately that's completely losing for black. Just objectively a bad position. Wow, then this puzzle was much trickier than I expected it to be. But I hope you are going to agree with me that knight e4 feels to be incredibly logical. It's fine, like I solve puzzles wrong from time to time. It's a very complicated book, so I have no problems with that. But let's see why it's wrong. Into g2. Well, queen e6 checks, the engine says, but first of all, I'm curious what's wrong with bishop f2. Knight f6 was my main idea there with a checkmate, but I have always calculated it with some checks, queen h1, queen f1, when the queen was not on the g-file. But if the queen just stays there, he slowly promotes his pawn, then after knight f6, he can just simply capture it, and I cannot take it back because my queen is hanging. This is amazing. I completely missed this resource. So this is actually the toughest thing in chess, and I constantly try to improve my skill at it. Understanding your opponent's ideas and opportunities and threats, like not only the most obvious ones. I have found that f2 move, and that is why the g5 move that white made in the game was wrong. So it's not like I'm completely stupid, but I have completely missed this idea. So you need to try your best to find all of the good resources for your opponent. Imagine how cool it would be to play chess without ever having opening troubles again. What if I told you I could teach you all openings you will ever need in just 10 days? You get lifetime access to more than 110 pure value video tutorials, almost 100 practical tasks to apply your knowledge immediately into practice, 30 plus bonus videos to dive 10 times deeper, as well as private community where all questions you might ever have are answered daily. Get the $200 limited time discount with the link in the description and forget about all opening pain once and for all. So I hope this video was instructive for you. You see that nobody is perfect, but the main thing here is not even to find the right solution for the puzzle. The main thing is that you spend some time focusing on chess, that you work actively working on it. It's called deliberate practice. That's what makes you better at chess, not just passively sitting in front of your screen and watching some YouTube videos. If you really like, when I ask you to post the video and you actively think about it, you learn something, then it's very useful. And I have a lot of videos in this series so that you basically can use it. You don't need to waste any time to look for books for puzzles. You can just use these videos as a way to make some deliberate practice for yourself to improve your chess, because afterwards you can always compare your decision-making process with mine in real time, which I think is great. Let me know in the comments what you think about this format. This is another video where I help you to calculate correctly. I can't stress enough how important it is for your chess growth, and this time I have managed to solve that crazy puzzle correctly.